You guys, are you traveling to an event or something?
Yeah, I have to go to Eastern Tennessee, ETSU
Oh,
tonight. Yeah, yeah. Of course, a lot of what I've been doing is trying to engage younger people, people my age. So I've been doing a lot of college campus stuff, and so tonight I'm at ETSU.
so let's go back to that quote you read. I'm taping this so that I can write the article, but I might take portions of this and put them on
Yeah,
air if you're okay with that.
of course.
So, Riley, what's on your Twitter? Where should I go? Because you quoted something. Was it
Her
directly on your
name
page?
is Macy Petty.
Okay.
So if you look up Macy Petty, it should be one of her first tweets, and I just thought it was really awesome.
Cool. Okay. So, current NCAA athlete fighting for fair play. So, I see you there in a picture with her, and it says, "Racist, sexist, anti-trans. You have blood on your hands." And then it's a picture that says, "Simple female athletes asking for our own spaces."
We had that chanted at us for hours. It was we were in Texas at the ceremonial signing. Governor Abbott, he signed the women's sports bill into effect. Of course, there were a lot of protesters who were spitting on us. They were throwing glass bottles at us. They were dumping liquids on us, yelling the most obscene things, and they chanted that for hours. Racist, sexist, anti-trans, you have blood on your hands. I mean, it's just so silly.
It really is, and I don't get it because what I'm seeing, Riley, is the violence is coming from their side. They're constantly playing the victim, and if that were the case, I'd have sympathy. But I'm not seeing people who have like school moms and school dads, people who have an objection to this. I'm not seeing them going in and shooting up schools or beating up other kids.
No, the violence is certainly coming from their side, but it's ironic because, as you said, they do it in the name of love and inclusion and tolerance, but that is not what I have been met with on the, I guess, the opposing side. It's been the exact opposite of those virtues that they're spewing. It's been vengeful, it's been violent, it's been filled with hate and vitriol, and it's relentless. It is unhinged. Never in my life, for taking the stand that I've taken, would I have imagined it would result in daily death threats from this side. I myself, it could be Adolf Hitler. I just don't think I could ever send a death threat to someone.
Yeah.
It's the craziest, again, just the most unhinged opposition protests I've ever seen.
Yeah, and as you know, I've had that experience too. I've had my family threatened. I've had letters come to my house threatening to kill my family. There you guys are in that picture. Great bunch of gals. It looks you look so happy and full of life. I love that. But yeah, I just don't. I see the threats, the violence coming from one side. These violent people, are they mainly trans people, or is there any common denominator? Are they young people, male, female? What are you seeing?
What's kind of almost ironic, of course, there are some trans individuals who have expressed an utter disregard and contempt for us as women and female athletes, but majority of the protest is coming from their allies, which tend to be straight, white, I guess, liberals. I don't know. It's straight white people, typically females even, which blows my mind because it's women fighting for their own erasure. They have a very skewed outlook and perception on what feminism, its original intent was for. It was to
Mm-hmm.
create equal opportunities. It was to give women equal rights. We've reached a point where I would say, of course, you can argue equal pay, different things that are kind of silly, but for the most part, we do have equal rights. And now this fourth wave feminism is totally undermining everything they once fought for by actively fighting to include males into our sports, into our spaces, taking away our opportunities. Even trailblazers like Billie Jean King, who once, I mean, we really have Billie Jean King to accredit Title IX to. And
Mm-hmm.
now Billie Jean King, who won the Battle of the Sexes just, I think, last week, 50 years ago,
is now actively fighting for male inclusion in women's sports. It
That
doesn't make sense.
that is just beyond bizarre. You know, I'm someone who's worked with NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. Mental health is big for me. And what I see is some of these people are enabling mental conditions, something that for many, many years was considered a mental illness. And now, I mean, is this healthy? Should I start telling someone who's schizophrenic to listen to that voice? You know, because that's your true self. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. The question I have for them, for these people who are so strident and even violent for this cause, does it make you feel good that you might be enabling some very harmful behavior, some mental illness?
I don't think they care if we, as women, as children specifically, become collateral damage. I don't think they care. Whether that be the way the news, the media is kind of propagating this, whether that be the way politicians are voting. I mean, if you look at the track record the past 3 or 4 years on a lot of these issues and the way Democrats are voting, they're sellouts. They're being a sellout to their own daughters. You're telling me they would actually be totally okay with their young daughter undressing in a locker room with a fully grown and fully intact male, exposing male parts? Really? You really think they're okay with that? I hold this hope in my heart that they don't actually think that. I mean, they can't. How could any good mother or father think that? Yet they're willing to throw away their moral compass entirely, even if it means being a sellout for their own children.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed your speech here in Tennessee recently. Saw you there and sponsored that event. I learned some things about you that I didn't know and heard some things I hadn't heard yet, like the fact that several officials, people in the swimming world, privately expressed to you, keep going, Riley, and yet publicly. Can you tell us about the one who said something about the science that they had? The science is evolving, I think it was.
Absolutely. So the NCAA president, Mark Emmert, who was a Republican governor of Massachusetts, or sorry, that's actually Charlie Baker, who's the new president. The new president was a Republican governor of Massachusetts who has failed to take a stance. But last year, during all of the Leah Thomas debacle, the president, Mark Emmert, he released a public statement following, and in the days following of that national championships, and he said, Leah Thomas he unequivocally stands in his decision to allow Leah Thomas to swim with the women because it's based in evolving science, which kind of just cracked me up. That's why I remember it word for word, because this usage of the word or the phrase evolving science. So that's what he said publicly, but privately at a big convention conference where they were announcing their NCAA Woman of the Year, which Leah Thomas and myself were nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year. Privately, Mark Emmert came up and says, great job, keep fighting, keep pushing. Thank you for doing what you do. And it just shows you the cowardice. It shows you how spineless these people are, the lack of a backbone that they have.
Evolving science. Now, as a scientist, I take a look at that and I say, knowledge is always evolving. We have theories. We have to bolster those theories with facts. We come up with the best explanation for the data. But evolving science, we don't make up new facts. We don't make things up. This is incredibly anti-scientific. And it's funny, Riley, because on my Instagram, on the Freedom Talk Instagram, I commented on one of Charlie Kirk's posts where he was asking these kids to define a woman. And I got on one comment, they said, define a woman. I said, XX period, full stop. And I got like 1,200 likes on it. And there were a couple people trying to argue it. And somebody said, oh, well, there's some people with triple X or this or that combination. I said, okay, that's diploidy or triploidy. It's very rare. Most of those babies who have these chromosomal abnormalities die. They're stillborn. The very few who survive are severely mentally handicapped. I don't think we see these people with 3 chromosomes instead of 2 going out there and doing these protests. We, like you said, we see probably young white heterosexuals. Why are they doing this? I tend to think maybe there's something missing in their soul where they're looking for purpose, looking for that next frontier.
Absolutely. They put their full identity into this, which myself, I find it to be a very interesting mentality, because I think these people really want to be oppressed, which who in history have ever wanted to be oppressed? But I think we've reached a point in society where we understand that being in a marginalized group typically comes with less responsibility and less accountability. And people strive for that now. people don't want to feel like they have to owe anyone anything. They want to be owed something. And so I think people have finally found a way, especially, right, the white heterosexual male. This has never been a group that's historically been oppressed, but now they found a way to make that group oppressed. And I think we're seeing people take advantage of this. It makes them come off as brave. It makes them get attention that otherwise they would never get, because a lot of these people who are transitioning and kind of taking advantage, and look, I'm not trying to say gender dysphoria doesn't exist, but a lot of people were seeing take advantage of the system, which is certainly there to be taken advantage of. They're ugly. I'm going to be totally honest here. They're ugly. Some are fatter. They just look very insecure, right? They're not someone who would get attention otherwise, being brutally honest, not trying to ruffle feathers. Let's just be real here. And so they're looking for, and they've found a way to get attention.
Yeah, and back to the cowardice that you talked about. I talked to a gentleman this past weekend who sees all these things happening, is against the woke agenda, but his comment to me was, it makes me want to hide under a rock. And I told my wife, you can't hide from this. They're going to come after you. And really, Riley, I think the key to this is we have to be courageous. And that's one of the reasons, among many, why I'm launching this Fathering in a World Gone Mad series that I've told you about, because men and fathers need to stand up. Look, the whole nation is so proud of you, Riley, what you're doing. It's amazing. You're a good friend. I'm old enough to say I'm proud of you without sounding condescending, but you know, what you're doing is fantastic. But you and I had a conversation about your dad. I know Hannah Faulkner was there speaking with you. She's got a strong dad. I really think it's key that men start standing up, fathers start standing up, and we start speaking against this insanity. Look, I've taken a lot of hits just for being a dad, for being a man. I've had, unfortunately, I went through a divorce. The system in Oregon tried to take my kids away. I had to fight hard for it. It's not an enviable place right now to be a dad. We're kind of low on that totem pole of victimhood. But tell me, what can men do, and how has your dad helped you? Because obviously, you have some strength built into you that I think is fantastic.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to applaud you and the work that you're doing and trying to highlight what fathers need to do. It is so, so crucial. And I would encourage every single man, whether you're a dad, whether you want to be a dad, soon to be, expecting, whatever, every single man would need to partake and listen to the program that you're putting forward, because I couldn't agree more. A strong family with a dad leading the family is so important. My dad, he first and foremost, I was very fortunate to grow up strong in my faith. You know, when you're young, it's not fun to go to church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I was the youngest one in my congregation by probably 60 years. But now, being 23 years old and looking back, I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful that, you know, when I'm 10 years old, my dad forced me to go to church. We can see the correlation between the decline of a present father and the decline of our society. We need strong men. I think the last time we had a society full of strong men was in the 1940s. And if you think about it, men were actively lying about their age to enlist in the war, fight in World War II, of course, saying they were younger than they really were, just to go out there and be on the front lines. And now, in 2023, you know, 80 years later, we have men lying about their sex to get into women's sports and take advantage of the systems and single sex spaces that we as women have. I mean, it's crazy the decline that we're seeing. But I think that goes to show how, I'll say, being a Gen Zer, we typically get blamed, for ruining the country. It's our generation that's going to ruin anything. But I like to argue that and say that it's the generation that came before us, and really the generation that came before them, that hurt our society. And I say that because it's the deceivers, or really it's the deceived, who are more dangerous than the deceivers. Because those who are deceived don't know the difference between right and wrong. But of course, the deceivers, they're actively deceiving. Which, who does that sound like?
Yeah,
That sounds like God's
exactly.
opposition.
Exactly. Well, and I, as a father, my oldest son is close to your age. It blows me away, but it makes me kind of old. But as a father, as a man, I look at these people, and I talked to Chloe Cole. I've gotten to know her, a wonderful human being. The things she's suffered, the stand she's taking, I'm proud of her as well. But I look at people who are suffering gender dysphoria, and I even look at some of these kids that are behind them, thinking they're on some sort of righteous crusade, that there's this great injustice in society that really doesn't exist. And yes, I'm going to hold on, I'm going to stand accept, but I also have a lot of compassion for them. Some of these kids, I want to take them in my arms and tell them, you're loved. You don't have anything. You don't have to prove anything. Sometimes, that father in me wants to discipline some of them because they're unruly and entitled, and they think that violence is justified because they have an opinion. I mean, I gave this shirt to Carrie Lake once, and it says, "No one should be persecuted for having an opinion." And I would love to see it saying out to more people. Why do you think these people that have been threatening you, physically assaulting you, and others that why do you think they justify that? Why do you think that they think that's okay?
Well, I can tell you why they do it, why they resort to violence and, again, vitriol and name calling and whatever else. It's because that's all they have on their side. Because on our side, we have truth, we have common sense, we have logic, we have reasoning, we have the science. What happened to following the science? And so they have to resort to those things because they can't dissuade from what we're saying in any other way. And so they justify this by actually thinking, I don't know if they actually think it, I would imagine that they actually think they're doing this out of love. Maybe they have good intentions. That kind of goes back to the deceived being more evil than the deceivers. Maybe they really think what they're doing is virtuous, but it's not. It's not inclusive to ask a young girl to step aside and smile and allow these men onto our podiums. And it's not compassionate to totally violate a girl's rights to privacy in an area of undressing next to a grown man. That's not compassionate, and that's not kind. It's loving to say the truth. We've all heard the phrase true love and what that means, and those words are synonymous. That is what love is. It's not kind or any other virtuous word they like to use to lie or affirm delusions or manipulate or deceive. That's not what love looks like.
Great comments. I want to ask you, as a result of your efforts, some of your fellow athletes, some of your fellow warriors of truth, you might say, are you seeing some positive changes? Are you seeing society start to turn? And what is your hope that we can overcome this moment of insanity in our country?
I have certainly seen positive changes. People are waking up. Parents are waking up. They see, and this is reaching beyond party lines, of course. If there's one thing you don't get in between, it's a parent and their child, especially a mom and their child, and the way the education system is going and the taking of parental rights and different things. I think we're reaching a turning point. The tides are certainly shifting. I think people are seeing just how unhinged and relentless the opposition is and how they really see no boundaries. And we're going to start seeing some changes. So momentum building. We're already seeing it in terms of at least legislature. Just 3 years ago, only one state had a fairness in women's sports bill, and now 23 do. And that's only going to continue. And so the tide is certainly shifting. This issue has no sustainability. It really doesn't. And the beautiful part really of it all is that we already know who wins. The Bible tells us who wins, which is what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me willing and able to go forward, looking these protesters dead in the eye. I'm really not scared of them because, again, we know the outcome already.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not scared either, and I don't get intimidated. It's stressful at times. It's hard on your family, but you know, I can't say enough. People have to find courage, and yes, we are going to win. But the question is, how long will it take, and how many people will suffer? And the more that people hide from this, the more they bury their head in the sand. The more they say, "Well, you know, I don't want to get in a confrontation." The longer this is going to go on, and really, I've seen videos of groups of kids being taught this transgender garbage. It's not science. It's not even pseudoscience. It's psychobabble. We all know what a woman is. I'm not one. You are. So I just can't stress enough. You know, people need to have courage. And something, you know, I'm paraphrasing Riley, but when you spoke in Tennessee recently, you talked about how people, and I shared that feeling with you. People say, "Hey, you stood up. You did your hero." And at first, that's kind of cool. But after a while, you start feeling like, "Hey, you step up and do something now." Can you expand on that a little bit? Citizen journalism's on the rise. But why is that? Well, it's because the mainstream media is full of propaganda and lies. That's why I'm working really hard for you every day to bring you great information and to fight for the things that are important to you. So if you're tired of the lamestream media and politicians who make big promises but don't do a lot of delivering, invest in spreading truth by making a monthly recurring donation at realfreedomtalk.com/give.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. When I first took my stance, and people all the time kind of in whispers, or they would secretly give me a link across the room, or they would message me privately, they would say, "Thank you for doing what you're doing, keep going." And just as you said, I felt so honored by this at first. I thought we were gaining support, but I very quickly, those feelings turned to frustration because I realized what this really meant. We were catering to the minority. I knew that before, but after seeing how many people reached out, it's like, where is the discrepancy? We have the power to change this. We have the authority to say enough is enough, and then we're not going to put up with it. We're not. And it's because I don't know if we've internally put these fears on ourselves. I don't know if it's externally, but silence is complicity, is what I've realized. And those who remain silent are just as bad as those who are allowing this openly and actively to happen. Couldn't agree more with you when this has to be said. Can't shy away from the conversation because, again, that's how we got here, by shying away and kind of just becoming complacent. So I totally agree. It's crazy that this stance that we're taking for, again, just common sense is considered brave. I never would have imagined in 1,000 years that this is what I would kind of spend my time doing. Nevertheless, again, it'd be considered courageous to do so. It's not brave to say what I'm saying. It's the easiest thing in the world to say. And it sure would be even easier if more people were willing to stand and willing to take some arrows.
Yeah. I was thinking after your presentation, I wish that things like you and I have done and some others, people who've really stood strong, I wish we were just average, everyday people. I wish it was just the norm. And I have to say this, Riley, and I'll say this on your behalf too. Those encouragements, those comments, all of those things are so helpful. Please don't stop. Riley, you're being modest. It's great to be in this place. It's great to have this courage and God sustains you. But there are times where it gets tough and those words of encouragement are very, very helpful. But I think the best thing you're referring to is people can step up and get involved and start doing something and not expect you to do all of it. Because I know some people who've been arrested or assaulted or various things, they feel like, hey, I'm going through all this stuff because I don't want you to see the worst of it, but I'm also going through it so that you'll look at this and say, hey, it's time for me to step up. So, I think in small ways, Riley, not everyone is, yeah, it takes courage. And not everyone's going to do it the same. Not everyone's going to stand up to a crowd. Not everyone's in that position. But I think people can do small things. Like they can actually at work, at church, wherever they be, just say, I disagree with that. And here's why. And one of the things we're doing with the Fathering series is we're taking all of these people, Victor Marx, Eric Metaxas, Sheriff Mark Lamb, a whole lot of people with combined wisdom, and we're going to equip fathers to go out and make a stand for truth, teach their kids, equip themselves to teach their kids. My daughter Eleanor, as you know, she just loves you. I really enjoyed watching you play with her. You might even match her in energy, which is amazing. I can't wait to get some of those pictures. But I really like that my daughter has a role model like you. So thank you, Riley, for everything you do. Our family loves you. You're doing great. You know, we've got your back no matter what happens. And I know you're in transit right now. If you have a little more time to talk, that's great. But I'm going to write up an article for Andrew Magazine, and we can correspond more on that. But based on our talk here, what do you think I could focus on for an article? What's a theme that really comes out for you in what we've just discussed?
Oh, let's see.
I sound like an English
A
teacher, don't
common
I?
theme. Yeah, you do. A common theme is certainly being bold, being unapologetic. I think that's important. We shouldn't have to feel like we have to compromise. We shouldn't have to feel like we should apologize for saying how we feel. And just like the Carrie Lake quote you said, which I can't remember it exactly, no opinion should be persecuted. I exactly, that's so true. And we shouldn't feel like we have to apologize for saying our opinions. So I think unapologetic is certainly there. I think a theme is, or at least something that I can see, this conversation, things we've centered around, is this country needs more heroes. It needs more heroines. We need more people who are role models. We don't have enough role models, whether that be fathers, which I'm super excited for your fathering series. I have a husband who hopefully one day he gets to be a father, whether that be people like you and myself. We just need to see more heroes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's a hard decision sometimes to be in that limelight, and it sure gets you some negative attention. But we need people in everyday walks of life to be heroes, and whether anybody's looking or not. And honestly, nobody needs to take on any kind of shame or embarrassment for having an opinion, and particularly when you're standing up for truth. So let people say what they will. Let people call you names. You can just look at them in the face and say, sorry you feel that way, but you're wrong. Do you have any really good responses that you've had when somebody's in your face? I'd love to hear something that maybe you remember.
Anytime someone calls me transphobic, I can just easily look at them and say, okay, well, you're a misogynist, to which they get all flustered and angry and say, well, no, I'm standing up for women. It's like, no, you're not. You're standing up for men who claim to be women, which is the exact opposite of standing up for women. So that's kind of how I answer this. Anytime someone says, your argument is anti-trans, no, it's not. My argument is pro-woman. My argument is pro-children. My argument is pro-parental rights. My argument is pro-fairness. It's pro-reality. It's not anti-anything. Pro-truth, which that's kind of how I handle this. I try to center the argument around girls, women, children. Again, not to leave men out of the conversation. Again, just typically the vulnerable groups who are being attacked here, rather than making the argument anti-anything.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Riley, for everything you're doing. Thanks, Louis, for being a great husband and a partner in this. He just looked over like,
I have my AirPods in. I wish you could hear that.
Oh, no, it's okay. And, you give me hope for my daughter if someday she gets involved in sports, that you will have blazed a trail. And I just encourage everybody to get behind you and support you. Is there anything, before we go, Riley, where people could support you, causes, or where they could visit your social media? How can we get behind you, Riley?
Yeah, absolutely. My Twitter is Riley_Gaines_. I just launched the Riley Gaines Center, which is a training program to establish and train and empower and inspire new leaders, giving them effective communication tools and resources and support and the knowledge to lead. We need more leaders, whether that's school board leaders, national leaders, community leaders, whatever that might be. We need to see more of those. And so that's what the center will focus on. And so you can find that at www.RileyGainesCenter.org.
I'll look that up and include that in the article as well. So I'll work on this. I'll get you a draft. I'll have to figure out when the publication dates are. But I kind of wanted to cover parts of your story maybe that are a little different, that haven't been covered as much yet. So
totally. Well, I appreciate you. I have a call supposed to be 2:30, so I have to head to that. But I really appreciate you, and I just love your family, and I love what you're doing. And tell Eleanor I just love her.
I will. She'll love that. All right. Well, we love you guys right back. Travel safe, and we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot, Riley.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.